couple of months back, I had a bit of an issue. I really wanted a new drone. You see, what I've had for quite a few years was this, a DJI Spark. It shoots in 1080, 12-minute battery life, quite light and small, so it doesn't deal well in good winds. And I was doing a lot more hiking, more than I've ever done before, and it was basically during the last lockdown. I live in the Northern Pennines and I was very lucky to be able to get out in some of the local mountains and fells near me and really wanted to capture the experience. But it was during the winter and you always get a bit of a breeze or a bit of wind on a mountain during the winter. That's just inevitable. And the Spark wouldn't keep up with it. It just simply wouldn't. So I started looking around for something else, but I only had a small budget of about £500, which even for me was a little bit of a stretch at the time, but I knew that was about the price point that I could just afford. So I looked around at loads and loads of different options and finally came to one conclusion and bought this drone. And it's the best thing that I have ever owned. What I'm going to do now is put up some footage from the drone itself so you can see what it can do, and then I'll tell you exactly which one it is. If you did like that bit of footage, then please do like and subscribe while you're thinking about it. I'll wait. You haven't done it yet. Thanks very much. Now you've done that, I'll show you which drone it is that took the footage. Here it is. It's DJI, and it came in this case too. This drone cost me, with postage and there was some transfer costs as well, £483. That's what I paid for this drone right here. We open it up. Inside we've got our drone, which is the DJI Mavic Pro, the first one. We've also got 3 spare batteries and the controller and some propellers too, for £483. We'll get the drone out to start with. Now, the DJI Mavic Pro is brilliant because it folds down so small and you can't really find many drones that actually do quite what this one does. I remember at the time when it came out, it was such a major deal. And there you go. Spread out the props and you're ready to fly. It's pretty much as simple as that. Now, the DJI Mavic Pro has been out for a few years now, and this isn't a new drone. I bought it second hand. But that's the point that I want to get across in this video. If you've got a budget for a drone, find out what the second-hand market's looking like. And you've got to be careful, okay? You can't just go around buying any drone that's second-hand because some have been crashed, some have been not very well looked after. But if you do your research, you ask the right questions, you can get a very good one. And for the amount I paid for this drone, I cannot say anything bad about it. I just can't. You know, the new version of this is close to £2,000. That price difference is absolutely everything. And this still shoots in 4K. It's got a 30-minute battery life with 3 spare batteries for that too. If you were to buy these brand new from the shop, you don't get the spare batteries, you've got to buy them separately. The other thing is as well, is this wouldn't even just be about 2,000, because that's for the drone. I think about 1,800 for the drone, and then with the Fly More combo, which comes with all these extra bits I've got, comes in at over £2,000. Got a controller, which very, very little signs of wear and tear at all. In fact, none, to be quite honest. And the owner, chucked in this very snazzy hardstyle case too, which isn't DJI. It says a DJI printer on top of it, but it looks incredible. This drone is insane. And for beginners, I'd say it's right too. You've got to be a little bit careful if you haven't flown a drone before. I've flown the Spark, which, does have its limitations, but it's an introduction into lower powered drones. This thing can fly at over 30 miles an hour. It's a bit scary, to be honest, when you first get it out, because it's got a lot of power. You can have it in 2 different settings. You can have it in just the standard mode, which I think will go up to about 15 miles an hour, and then sports mode, which goes over 30 miles an hour. If you've never flown a drone before, keep it in standard, you'll be absolutely fine. If you put the throttles any which way, it's not going to suddenly just shoot off. In sports mode, it will do that. It's twitchy. But equally, that's how you get shots like the car one that was the last section of that film back there. Because I was doing around about 35 miles an hour in that car, actually. That was shot earlier today. And you know what? It just kept up. I was really shocked. And that's the thing, the DJI drones have all those different clever smart features, like the active track that I used in that, have the point of interest where you can select a point and the drone will literally go all the way around. For beginners, there's a lot this thing can tell you to do. If you learn to shoot properly with it and shoot in manual and fly it really, really well, it can also do it, it can adapt, it can cope to pretty much anything you do. This drone for £480 is insane. And you've also got the phone connectivity too. I get back, link my phone to it, and within a couple of minutes I've downloaded off most of the videos, photos, or even quicker, and they're there, ready to share around on social media. And also you've just got your SD card that you put in the side of it. So again, if you want to get back, stick it in your computer and put those photos into Lightroom, or obviously use editing software for the videos, then that's easy enough to do too, and equally done in seconds. It's got a range of 4.2 miles, I believe. The furthest I've ever flown it was 2.3 miles. Now in the UK, in theory, you're meant to keep your drone within line of sight. At that distance, I'll be honest, it was a bit hit or miss as to whether I could see it, and that was on a really, really clear day. So having that range of 4 miles, unless you've actually got permission to fly further, really is kind of just a novelty. And who really wants to fly their drone that far away? Do you really want to push it? But it's just nice to know that you haven't really got any limitations. There's nothing this thing can't do. It can keep up with vehicles. It's got the speed to do things like that. It's got the range. Winds is one which I've had quite a lot of experience with this. So I've had this out in a wind of about 25 miles an hour. And at that speed, that was enough for it. Let's put it that way. I'm never going to fly it in that wind again, simply because that was sort of the limit for it, I feel. And you've got the motors and the props really working overtime to keep it stable in those sort of conditions, and you don't want to wear them out. But in terms of comparison to some of the cheaper, lighter drones, this will do a lot better. There's a lot more weight in it. And it packs down incredibly small too. So you've got that massive surface area. So it can deal with the winds really, really well. But actually when it packs away, it doesn't take up that much room at all. I've actually got a smaller case that I use for it, not this big one all the time, because as you can imagine, that would get slightly annoying. The other thing to bring attention to is probably the controller too. So we discussed the controller earlier, which was a lot of fun, but this is pretty much how you control it, which again, in comparison to the Spark, I've been controlling the Spark off my phone. I did have a remote, but it broke. But the remote compares to the Spark, this is a lot more robust. It's really, really solid. You can feel the weight in it, which is what you want in something like this. You've got metal across the back. I think the rest is plastic, but it's really, really strong. And there's actually a tiny bit of, I think there's a bit of glass just across the top there as well. It's a really, really exquisite piece of equipment to go with it, and you can do everything you need to do with the drone on this, apart from the smart modes. The smart modes are on your phone, but the rest of it is on here. So you can control the gimbal axis, so you can tilt the gimbal up and down. You can even bring it back to home. You can take photos, you can start recording on it. You can pause recordings. and it gives you all the feedback and details about the drone on there. In fact, if I just start this drone up now on camera, you'll get a good sense of what it's like. First thing you need to do is take off those gimbal protectors on the front, so they make sure that during travel, that gimbal isn't, going around and damaging itself. I've also got to swap it back over to RC. So in there, you can swap it over from Wi-Fi to RC mode. So when you're in RC mode, it connects to the controller. When it's in Wi-Fi mode, it can connect to your phone. So I start that up, get all the flashing lights on it. And you'll start to see the gimbal begin to work. There you go. So the gimbal's just positioning itself in relation to what's going on around it. And there we go, all the lights are on. Then you get your controller, really, really straightforward and simple. Hold it down, turn it on, and it will actually start just connecting to the drone now. And when it's connected, we'll start to get all the stats about it. And this really is just how quick it is. There you go, and we're already connected. So within the space of, 20 seconds, I've got that out, switched it on, it's connected to the remote control, and what you do now is plug your phone into the remote below this as well, and you'll be able to see the image on the camera, which is, even on the phone, just sort of live streaming, is really, really clear. So you get a good sense of what's going on. It's all the different stats we've got on there, so you get height, elevation, distance from yourself as well, and you can even control things like the camera exposure levels too on that dial there. So, for the value for money you get in this thing is just ridiculous. And I'd urge anyone, if you've got that budget of about £500 to spend on one, seriously look for a used DJI Mavic Pro, because you just cannot get anything as good as this. The nearest competitor is probably the Mavic Mini, which the Mavic Mini is very similar to what the Spark was when it first came out. In fact, it is the Spark, just slightly upgraded, and it doesn't do the same job and even costs a bit more money. So that's the competitor. If you do want something brand new, maybe look at the Mavic Mini 2. But if you want something, you're prepared to go into the second-hand market, then go for a DJI Mavic Pro, because it will not disappoint. Yes, it's a bit old, this drone. Yes, it will have been used by someone, but you know what? If you can get confirmation of how it's been used, also why they're selling it, that's an interesting point. Why are they selling this drone? Are they selling it because they've crashed it and it's not quite working as good as it used to? Or are they selling it because they're upgrading, which is what I'm doing with my Spark at the moment? So yeah, that is, in my opinion, the best drone you can get for £500. And I've been using this for a couple of months now, and I honestly have not got a bad word to say about it. I'm very, very critical when it comes to photography equipment a lot of the time. And, especially some of the DSLRs I've owned, digital cameras, etc. I always manage to find fault in them. But actually, this Mavic, I just can't. I cannot think of one thing bad about it for the price. That's the key for me, is for the price. And even if that would cost me £1,000, I would still be over the moon with it. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video today, and yeah, that's my opinion. If you've got a £500 budget, find yourself a Mavic Pro secondhand. You will not be disappointed. And I will see you in the next video.